Okay, we'll get started with our February public health and safety meeting. And I want to welcome our new member, Jean Perrott. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with approval of the minutes.
I just want to make a note about these minutes. I don't want anyone here to think that this is like my usual standard for how minutes are done. As we talked about the last meeting, these minutes are solely to, keep us legal, so to speak, and do not reflect the quality I would otherwise want to put into minute taking.
So at FMA, I do the minutes as chair and just do the legal version
Yeah,
because there's a recording. So if
That's
anyone really
true,
wants to go back,
Mm-hmm.
do you need somebody here to do it? 'Cause how easy-
well, before there was a member of the committee doing it, and it kind of, just didn't happen those 2 months.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do you want us to rotate?
Yeah, okay. But can we do that? I mean, I guess I normally do it with just the agenda.
That's what I do, is I just change it to a word. For FNA, when I do the minutes, I just change the agenda, save the minutes into the legal version. Unless
Okay.
you want to.
No, thank you.
I don't remember, are we also doing, I know you had talked about like summary for each meeting? Well, okay, so hold that thought.
Yeah, me and Samir talk more about how we're going to make that work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I am having a little difficulty hearing. I can hear Samantha very clearly. Everybody else a little muffled.
I think, unfortunately, I think there's a problem with the owl. You remember at the last council meeting back on like the 19th, we had a problem, and it's been kind of like unfortunately the same problem since then.
Okay.
But I can,
Okay.
you can export, like I'm opening it right now, I'm going to export it as a Word.
Okay.
And then in the future, we'll just pass.
You're not missing too much right now, Mayor. We're just talking about minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
If we could just put a Word version, which you've done for me in FNA.
Yeah, I
Right
really
now,
have to do the
Word.
minutes. It's easy for me if it's a Word document. Like if I could get the agenda.
Oh yeah, so if you go to the folder where the packet is, I have both a Word and I take the Word version of it and then just convert it into a PDF for the packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is that again? The Word document.
It's in the same folder where all the other materials are. So if you go onto SharePoint and then go to it's like council and then committees, public health and safety, agendas.
You can do today?
Yeah, I'm trying to, yeah.
Okay, and then I can do next time.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
again, I'm comfortable with the legal version because there's a recording.
Yeah. Oh, I think we action is.
Absolutely.
If the decision's made, that's all we need.
Great.
Okay.
Yep, all right.
All right, thank you, Smith. So here we are, we need to approve minutes from October, November, and December. That's our first item. So I have a motion to approve minutes.
So,
And a second.
a second?
Okay, and we all vote and agree? Okay, so we approve the minutes, and then we have a second set of minutes. This is from January 2023. So I think we need to do the same little dance.
Mm-hmm.
Motion to approve and second. And we'll vote. Okay, so we approve the minutes, and I think we're now current.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you for bearing with us through that.
It's like the world's most boring meeting.
So far, it'll get
So
better.
far, well, yes.
So next we have public comment, and we do have one person with us here in the room. So would you like to make a public comment? Or just say your name again first and last.
Yeah, of course. Yes, Jay Whitmore at 121 Windsor Ave. My vested interest of the last month's meeting is the stop signs at Conway and Windsor intersections. I think when I last time, the price four-way stop sign was approved. I haven't seen that go up yet, so curious of timing of that as well as conditional approval for these additional intersections. Other thing I would add there, speeding has still been an issue. I know the collection stopped about a month ago, coming into the last week, but like anecdotally, I've still noticed a lot of speeding, a lot of dangerous pedestrian situations, especially the bus stop on Conway. Kids there in the morning, dogs, etc. It's just a matter of time before something happens. And also a lot of just dangerous driver behavior because some people assume that it's a four-way stop, but it's not. So you have kind of like backups and cars and things like that. And then if we're looking to a future of like standardizing the grid in Narberth, which might be ambitious, I think the only remaining street we have approval for again, Conway and Dudley, and go forward with the Price intersection. I think the only one left at that point is Grayling. So I just wanted to throw that in there as the last remaining, I think, not four-way stops with the same traffic dynamics and pedestrian patterns and things like that. Yeah, so that's it.
Let me
Yeah, thank you.
respond to some of that. So with the Price and Conway stop sign, myself and the traffic engineer and the public works manager have wanted to make sure that we provide adequate public notice about that change before we put it up. And I'll definitely check in with both of them about where that is, where that's at in that process.
Extended Dudley as well, or just Conway?
Well, we're talking Conway and Price. I'm just only referring to Conway and Price. Yeah. We'll talk about Windsor and Conway and Windsor and Dudley in just a second. Speaking of Grayling, it's actually funny you mentioned that. I was on my way home from work yesterday, and I routinely take Windsor over to Iona into Lower Marion, and when I was going past Grayling, I was kind of mentally preparing for this meeting, and I thought to myself, if we ended up putting, we have to see what the traffic engineer says, but if we end up putting stop signs at those other two intersections, I thought to myself, Grayling would be the only intersection in this zone that wouldn't have one, and that did feel a little odd to me.
Especially with the quantity of young kids.
Yeah.
It feels, there's Narberth Presbyterian right there, and there's a lot of crossings.
Yeah, they got school in the morning too, but yeah, with kids there, so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jake, what's your last name?
Whitmore?
Whitmore, I did that.
So
Okay.
H-I-T-T, right?
And we'll talk more when we get to that agenda item.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think there's any other public comment. So we would move next to the EAC. The EAC has been reviewing the plastics ordinance. That came out of our last meeting, so they're going to make recommendations to us at our next meeting. And also, they're looking at possible improvements for our hall in terms of they're looking at the solution, memo that came from Canoni. And so I think they're going to have some suggestions for us to consider as well. Maybe at the next meeting. Because the timing of that is kind of, we have time because we're waiting to decide, right?
Yeah, we're waiting on both the outcome of a grant application that I've been told I should hear about in March, one way or the other, and then just in general, seeing where the technology goes with it more long term. I defer to you as chair of this committee, Rob, whether it would make more sense once the EAC has that recommendation, whether it will be this committee or infrastructure, since infrastructure's already been talking about that.
Right. Oh, that's right, yeah. Well, I think the main thing is that once we get the EAC recommendation, we'll share it with this committee, we can share it with infrastructure.
Yeah.
And if we have that it's sometime in February, the timing should line up, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
They're concerned with the heat for this building, and if there's a way to pursue a more green solution, so that's what they're looking at. So more from the EAC in March. Okay, so I think Shade Tree, I know they're preparing their planting in April. Have you heard more about the
So, so Rick and Jeff have communicated about restoring the tree that was removed outside of, I think it's like Fusion is outside. And the last email that I got was Rick was ordering the tree, Jeff was removing the tree bed, I guess you would call it. So
Tree pit, yeah.
Tree pit, thank you. So it's.
Underway,
They have
yeah.
squared this away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. So I just reminded everybody, put in your tree orders. I can't remember the deadline, maybe it's passed. But they're always looking for volunteers to help. And I think they're doing it on Earth Day or that weekend, April 21st.
Yeah, that's correct. It'll be on April 22nd.
Okay. All right, so then we have traffic concerns. So, Samantha, do you want to help us with this?
Sure. So with the first item, well, kind of for both items, I also want to note for future agendas, I realized I still had that typo in 6.2 where it just says 200 block Iona speeding, where it should say 200 and 300 block Iona speeding.
Right.
So I'll fix that in the next one. So Jay, my apologies. I didn't have a chance yesterday or this morning to tell you. I got a email from the traffic engineer yesterday that stated he's still working through the report. The update he provided me said, we completed our site reviews and I had someone go out and count the intersection of Iona and Meeting House a couple weeks ago to get a better idea of the direction of cut-through traffic. We also went out and checked conditions at the two proposed stop-controlled intersections on Windsor. My current issue is that I'm waiting on historic crash data for each location. PennDOT has been a bit slow to reply to our requests. Does the Borough Police Department maintain crash reports, and can you provide me with that information? So I haven't had a chance to reply to the traffic engineer yet or to follow up with the mayor or the police department about that. But absolutely, next week I'll get back to him about that with that information. And, my apologies to Jay as well as to the folks at the 200 and 300 block of Iona and other parts of that neighborhood, because I was hoping we'd have a recommendation today to talk about. So I'll follow up with the traffic engineer on that, and we will get that recommendation for our March meeting.
Okay, great.
Samantha, to get the information, what time span are you looking for?
That's something I'll need to follow up with the traffic engineer about, and once I know that, I can definitely coordinate with you, Mayor, about getting that information from Narborough Police Department.
Sure, no problem.
Can I just contextualize some of that data? Samantha, from a personal perspective, we replaced 6 mirrors and never called the police. So it's a limit. I hope when he looks at that quantitative data that he recognizes it actually is not.
Yeah, and like Mike, like the traffic engineer talked about when he was here at our last meeting, these are formalities he has to go through. Yeah, and so we'll definitely keep that in mind.
Just one other consideration, Samantha, it occurred to me, is that section at all part of Mainland Greenway or Meeting House?
Currently, the mainline greenway just runs through Woodside Avenue and connects at Parkview, all the room
Okay, so it's all on the south side.
on the south side.
Okay.
There was talk about doing another section up there. I don't think that's going to happen, but it may. It's still in flux. They're starting the project probably around March. After they wrap up the overall master plan project. So,
Okay.
Which is so interesting because it's such a logical path to go if they go down Iona, right on Meeting House, over to hop on the Valley Trail.
Mhm.
I mean, there's significant, anecdotally, there's significant bike traffic.
it's a really well-used path. If you look at the bike traffic data, a lot of cyclists use Iona. So, well, we can talk about that. I think I'll be working with Chris Western in the future.
Okay. I just had a memory of that Meeting House corridor,
Yeah.
but it's not in the official Greenway at the moment.
It's still being worked on, so I think it's, it could be possible.
Okay. So, well, thank you for that. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping we'd have a little bit more to talk about here this morning, but I'm hoping for, some meaningful and, some, worthwhile news for both Jay and the folks who come to us previously about the situation on Iona for our March meeting, so we can determine a solution and then start working on implementing it for them. And not just for them, for everyone, in the borough who deals with the traffic there.
Okay. So we can move on then to the fire company. In this committee, we've taken turns attending these meetings when we can. We can't always do it. But I guess the next meeting would be in March.
Yeah, it will be March 6th. I also have a couple notes about their February meeting I heard that I wanted to share with the committee.
Okay.
So their next meeting will be March 6th, so it would be good if someone is able to attend that. At their February 6th meeting, I heard from their treasurer that they would like, they had a CD that just, I forget what the right word for it is, but it was at the period where they could cash it out. And looking at interest rates now, there's a governmental banking program called PLIGIT. It's an acronym. I forget exactly what PLIGIT stands for this morning. And they're offering an interest rate of about 4.5% on a program where it would be basically the equivalent of a 60-day CD. And the fire company reached out to me about whether the borough would be willing to help them make that happen, because as a 501c3, they're not eligible for PLIGIT, but as a municipality, the borough is. So I recommended to them that they work out as much of the details as they can, and that I would otherwise would recommend in favor of Borough Council opening that bank account on their behalf, and so that way, they can get that interest rate, because obviously the more interest the fire company can make, that's obviously a benefit to the borough as well for the things they're doing and the things they need.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is PLIGIT P-L-I-G?
It's PLGIT.
Okay, so that sounds reasonable. So that would come back to the committee, maybe.
Yeah, it'll probably come back in. It'll probably come back in March, yeah, and then I would need like with any bank account, Borough Council would then have to vote to approve opening it.
Okay.
And in general, they have, and it's been a good suggestion. They talked to me about whether the borough should consider moving its banking over to PLIGIT. As Cindy probably remembers from F&A, I went through a pretty laborious process following up on my predecessors to consolidate our bank accounts, and we now have all of our banking with Citizens Bank up the street here. I will admit our interest rate we're getting from Citizens is nowhere near 4.5%. So I'm kind of on the fence about it. Obviously, I don't want to leave money on the table for the borough and its taxpayers, but also recognizing the time it takes to do that, and also recognizing that part of why we left PLIGIT was when I first started working here, they had an interest rate of like 4 basis points. So that's, 0.04%. So I also want to be in a situation where, we move everything to PLIGIT, and go through that effort. And then, like 3 years from now or something, interest rates possibly go back down. And then we're like, I don't want to jump back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that might be a future topic, maybe talk more with F&A about.
Okay. Well, so the next meeting is Monday, March 6th at 8 p.m. Right?
Great. Thank you, Rob.
Okay. So now we get to the police update, and I know there's a lot in motion.
Yeah, if I can go first, then Mayor, maybe you can add a couple of the points. My apologies. I forget if I had an opportunity to send you all the December police report. I received it like right after I finished sending the packet out, and just with everything I've had going on this week, I forget if I had an opportunity or not to send it over to you all. So if I didn't, I'll definitely make sure to send that to you all, make sure it gets put on the borough website. So that was just a note I had about it, and otherwise I'll defer to the mayor regarding anything regarding the police department she wants to share this morning.
I was at the PAC meeting yesterday, and just to combine everything, I guess, all at once. The committee is continuing to gather information. They're going to be doing some listening sessions with the public to try and determine what the public wants and looking for. So they're trying to establish the game plan for the listening sessions. Right now, for the department, Sergeant Fernaccio is continuing to run things. We are a little bit short-staffed. I can't get into details with a couple personnel, but we have a couple officers on administrative work, so they're due to health concerns. So we're relying a little bit on Lower Merion, but we're trying to do our best during this interim period.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I was reminded of some of our discussions this morning reading the Times. There was a story of an Arrive Together pilot program in northern New Jersey where an unarmed policeman is accompanied by a counselor when there are calls of emotional distress, So it's an exciting time. There are a lot of new things being piloted.
Sorry, Rob, what did you say the name of that program
It was
was?
called Arrive Together, and it seems to be very successful. So there's a counselor involved.
Yeah, I'll definitely want to Google that. So or do a search engine search for it. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, so I know it's the kind of thing that maybe that we've discussed. Cindy's brought to our attention, and we do have an opportunity if we hire for the department to think about these things. To think about public health and safety more broadly. So, okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
All right, so here we are, the last couple items.
Well, actually, if we could circle back to the emergency communications memo for just a second, because it's been on hold for a few months here, and I think it's hopefully this portion of it, I think will hopefully work out well for us. So we had a meeting, I guess back in October, maybe, myself, the mayor, Rob as chair of public health and safety, Sergeant Bernacchio as our acting police chief, our acting emergency management coordinator and deputy fire chief, Bill Henderson, and also our council president, Fred Bush, to talk about in emergency situations, how does the borough ensure that we're putting out timely and accurate information to the public. And I think it was a very good discussion. And we arrived at the protocol that I've outlined in this memo, just so everyone knows what kind of the expectations are for that. The good news, since I wrote this memo, the borough does now have access to the county emergency notification system. Publicly, it's called Ready Montco, and the software platform they use for it is called Everbridge. So we do have now the ability to put the information out via that method when we have emergency situations. And we talked about a variety of different sort of what might be an emergency situation, because the county obviously doesn't want people using the emergency notification component of Everbridge for non-emergencies, but the county does also offer non-emergency communication options through it as well, that I think will be a great benefit to the borough in the future.
So that could either supplement or replace the flash email?
Yeah, my goal would be for it ultimately to replace the flash email, because under that, I mean, we're getting a little beyond public health and
Yeah.
safety here, but just for a second, because I would envision the great thing about Ready Montco is people decide how they want to be contacted about information. You tell the system, do you want to get an email? Do you prefer to get a text message? Do you prefer to get a phone call? And that way, when you send a message out, if someone has signed up, even for non-emergency communications, and has said, I prefer to receive a text message, it would be, we could put the full thing out in an email like we do with the flash. We also could create like a custom text message. I would say like, it'd be like, here, your character limited, but it'd be like, here's, the Narberth newsletter, maybe 1 or 2 points about it, and like then a link to the email itself. So I think it's really neat technology that I think could help make our communications more efficient, and also, get information to residents the way they want to get the information.
Mm-hmm. So, but you're saying with that Everbridge platform, the emergency communications would be clearly labeled as emergency?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So to clarify, to communicate through the Everbridge, people won't have to download the app.
No. So Montgomery County, if you go to like Ready Montco, it's like an online sign up form. And I would want to, before making any transition from the flash, I'd want to heavily publicize to the residents, like, here's where you sign up for this. So I did this in my last job. I basically switched from something like the flash to using Everbridge, because Bucks County uses the same system. And what the borough did was it just migrated everyone who was already signed up for the borough's communication over to the Everbridge one, and then gave them the option if they wanted to then add other stuff to it. So that's how I would kind of envision that working.
So how do they receive it?
So when you sign up for it, you tell the system how you want to receive it. It gives you the options. Do you want to provide a phone number? Do you want to provide a cell phone number? Do you want to provide an email? And then you can also prioritize how you want to receive the message between those contact methods.
And you can set it to just from our photo.
Correct, yeah. So there's a whole, there's a list of like all the different municipalities in the area. And not only that, you can also choose, when you choose Narberth Borough, you also would have the option of choosing like Narberth emergency notices and Narberth non-emergency notices. So the county already kind of built this system. It's just something the borough hasn't taken advantage of until now.
Thank you for doing that, Samantha. That'll be very helpful.
So if the committee is fine with the proposal as written for emergency situations, then I think we'll be in a pretty good place to proceed with operating that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. I was pleased with the plan that was developed, collaboratively with the sergeant and the mayor and you, so I think it works. Okay, well, thank you. So then we get to 9 and 10, and we have a sample ordinance in the packet for number 9, the local food regulations.
Yeah.
So we could look at that, and that's come up. We're not just making work for ourselves. This is something that has been brought to our attention by local businesses, and it makes sense. There can be direct competition between a mobile vendor and one of our resident businesses that's paying, say, a business tax. And so it does seem like an unfair situation.
Yeah, and I think it's not just, if I may, sorry, it's not just a business competition situation. I think it's like frankly, a community nuisance situation, about pointing fingers. All I'll say is there was one afternoon here at the borough office where a mobile food vendor was like parked at the corner of here at Conway and Haverford, and was here for like 30 minutes and like had, you know, music and stuff going, and it was like, you know, pretty distracting. And other borough residents have expressed concern about the noise from mobile food vendors as they're, you know, doing their business in borough neighborhoods. So, you know, it's a situation right now in the borough that's completely unregulated. And I think, you know, I give credit to, you know, borough staff who found this ordinance, I believe it's from Norristown, for our, you know, consideration as maybe a step in the direction of bringing some order to that for the benefit of both borough businesses and borough residents.
Mhm.
It's also something we've talked about in the Parks and Rec board, in terms of having, we were talking about the possibility of using the 201 stay by in the parking lot as, you know, like having it open to food trucks. So I think if we can designate certain areas in the borough where it's allowed, that might solve some of those issues. Competing or being a nuisance in other areas.
That's a good thought.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We have postponed thinking about that until the spring.
So I'm sorry, I'm looking in here. Is it the mute? I mean, so there's massive safety with cooking equipment and fire safety, and that should be regulated everywhere. Is there a way that we can't just ban the music? Because that seems to be regulated. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to find in here whether it's.
Yeah, that's a question I can ask the borough solicitor. To be honest, the borough solicitor to date has not been involved in the conversation about this.
Right.
I do think you're going to have some super sad residents if you say,
No music or what?
no, I think the music. I mean, yeah, I think particularly now with certain stores closed, you're going to have some super sad residents that think the joy of.
No, yeah, I want to be clear because you're right. I kind of hear people say, oh, the borough is going to ban the ice cream truck. That is not the goal of this regulation.
If you look at this ordinance, it's a separate ice cream truck or like it has separate rules.
I'm trying to find
Yeah,
it.
there's like, we're just trying to find a middle ground here between banning ice cream trucks and food trucks, which we are not trying to do,
Yeah.
and letting food trucks and ice cream trucks do whatever they want all over the borough.
If I may, do you just also want to keep in mind any regulations that sometimes certain like the 4th of July committee wants to get like groups of food trucks for events, and you want to allow for something like that because that enhances events in the borough. So you want to provide a mechanism for allowing that to happen. So, but at the same time, you don't want the trucks to be blocking crosswalks for 20 minutes at a time. It's a safety thing.
Right. Right.
Or if a particular truck did not go through the process to become like an official participant in a public event, hanging out on the periphery of said event.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it would be nice to be able to reassure neighbors, yes, they for safety, health and safety. Because my standard answer is like, it's good for immune system. Like, no, it's not. You know, it would be nice to say, no, actually, we do have a process where we know that people are operating safely.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the county health department has those regulations, and I think we could just make it as simple as the borough being like, hey, we need like to see your county like health, certificate or license or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good idea.
I would be hesitant to restrict to one place for sure, like the Save On Park, because of the concerts, the festivals, and whatnot.
Yeah, I think maybe that would just be like maybe one of many kind of places where it would be where you'd be allowed to really like set up.
Park, and also it looks like Norristown, they have, it's based upon approval of council, so whatever the borough is allowed.
Yeah.
So maybe what we should do as a committee is look over this sample ordinance, and then next month we could discuss if there are parts of it that we like or don't like. I mean,
Yeah, now that you know the context of of why this is being proposed, yeah, I think that'd be great. If everyone has a chance to look more at it and be prepared next month to give specific thoughts that I can then take to the borough solicitor, then draft up an ordinance relevant to Narberth.
Okay, that's good.
And I'm sorry, is this a priority? Do you feel like this is?
No, frankly.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure, given all that we have, this does not feel like, my God, it is that. I personally would much prefer us look at traffic issues.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
No, I think I would agree. The next item we're going to talk about is a much higher priority.
So, okay, so let's talk about that, the solid waste ordinance. You know, it's February. I think Samantha, you told us we have to be ready kind of in the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to put a bid out. And yeah, so I've kind of turned this into two items. One is dealing with the ordinance, and one is figuring out a future trash contract. Maybe I can start with that while I pull up this document I'm looking for. So, per our last meeting, both myself and our public works manager followed up with staff at Lower Merion Township to learn more about their trash operations and their trash billing and how all that works. And we did realize in those conversations with them that we unfortunately found that we don't think it'll be viable for Lower Merion Township to provide trash service to the borough. We also felt, talking through that with them and what all goes into that we don't think the borough would be able to provide wouldn't be able to provide full trash service. I think with our public works manager and I have been talking about with leaf and yard waste, the borough potentially taking that on as part of starting a composting program per the climate action plan. And we're looking at some grant funding to get the equipment to make that happen. But for trash and recycling and bulk items, the challenge for the borough would be, in particular, we would have to have a level of redundancy that would make the whole thing very inefficient, because yeah, you could do the whole borough with one truck and two people, but what if the truck breaks down? So now you got to have two trucks. And then what if someone's out sick or on vacation? Well, now you got to have like three people or maybe even like four people to do it. So it would just be like really inefficient for like 95% of the time of how it would work, to the point where contracted hauling would be the most efficient and practical option. That being said, the main downside I've found with contracted haulers is the missed pickups. And talking with our current contracted hauler, as well as my past experience with other contracted haulers, there seem to be two problems. One is that it's not always the same staff that are doing the route. And when you have the same people doing it, they kind of get a sense of the nuance and the eccentricities of any given part of the borough and how people put their trash out and all that kind of thing. The other challenge is similar to what I just said before. Even with the big trash hauling companies, they do run into mechanical breakdowns. They do run into staffing challenges. But at least they have the people that when a missed pickup occurs, they have another truck they can send out, or they have another person. It's not ideal for anyone. It's not ideal for the resident because their trash didn't get picked up like they expected. It's not ideal for the borough because now we have another trash truck coming on, doing wear and tear on the roads, causing traffic, causing pollution. And it's not ideal for the trash hauler either because now they're having to send another truck out. An idea that our current hauler threw out to me for us to consider for the next bid, with the understanding that contractor may not be the one doing the work. It'll be whoever is the lowest responsible bidder, is that if we opened up the idea of not doing the entire borough in a single day, like if we split the borough, like the suggestion I heard was like, right now, we do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and like, one day we do all the trash, one day we do all the recycling, one day we do all the bulk and leaf and yard waste. The proposal was you could still probably have one truck do all the bulk and leaf and yard waste in a single day. Well, not a single truck. You could do all the bulk and all the leaf and yard waste in a single day. And that the trash and recycling, if you split each of those over 2 days, like Monday would be like the north side trash, Tuesday would be the south side trash, Thursday would be north side recycling, Friday would be south side recycling or something like that. Or maybe to make it easier on the residents, say something like, north side Monday is trash, Tuesday is recycling, south side, Thursday is trash, Friday is recycling. They would be able to commit, from at least in their business, to having the same crew do all the pickups in the borough. So that's an idea from,
Because it's a 5-day schedule then?
yeah,
So the same crew every day goes to Nerve.
exactly.
I see.
So I feel like if we were able to work with a contracted hauler, whoever our next one is, to do something like that, that would probably solve one of the biggest issues when it comes to the, service issues we've experienced.
I find the trash hauling contract so similar to the internet issues in companies in my house, where you're switching companies just for different issues.
Yeah.
And you're kind of picking which ones,
I would unfortunately agree with that. In my last, in my last job, I worked with Waste Management, had the bid there, and I think the borough before Republic had either Advanced Disposal or Waste Management. And yeah, I think unfortunately, it's kind of the nature of the deal.
The nature of the beast. I am at least happy to hear that the current hauler has strategized a plan, which at least appears to make sense to me.
Yeah.
And on the borough side, we've worked out, over the last 2 months and talking about in this committee even, how on our end we can help address some of those issues. Yeah, we can't do full-blown trash pickup, but if the hauler missed like one property one time, then yeah, Public Works goes out there and, takes care of it, and we let the hauler know, hey, don't miss this again, please. So.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, we have limited options, right, in terms of trash haul contractors.
Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 companies that usually bid on it. It's Republic, Waste Management actually bought out Advanced Disposal, so there's even fewer now. So usually Republic, Waste Management, JP Mascaro, and like AJ Blazinski are usually like the big players in this area. And those are the companies I would expect to probably bid on any contract that we would put out there. I do have a lot of thoughts on the future contract, but I would like to take maybe the remaining 15 minutes this morning to talk more about our actual trash ordinance, because the trash ordinance in some ways informs the contract. One of the biggest issues I found with our current trash ordinance is it specifically references what services the borough is going to provide, and it in no way, shape, or form matches what we're actually contracting out for nowadays. And I think that, writing the ordinance that way doesn't make any sense, because we're going to change, over time, and as our needs develop, we're going to change how we provide the service. And I don't think we really need to specify that in ordinance. I spent a lot of time looking at Lower Marion Township's solid waste ordinance, and also my experience with New Britain Borough's solid waste ordinance. So I'll admit a lot of the stuff that I was copied and pasted in here either came from Lower Marion's ordinance or from New Britain Borough's. And there's just so much stuff in our ordinance that you don't find in modern solid waste ordinances. The other particular place where I had to cut a lot of material was in terms of disposal. A large section at the end of the ordinance, like 7 or 8 pages, goes on about the borough's participation in a county program for trash disposal at a site up in Plymouth. And that program, as far as I can tell, no longer exists. And as I think everyone here knows, but just so we all do know, nowadays the borough disposes of its solid waste at not very far from the borough. Actually, there's a site owned by Lower Merion Township that we have a formal agreement with them in order to be able to dispose of waste there. So so I cut all that out from the ordinance. I left kind of an open question for the borough solicitor whether the ordinance needs to reference the agreement we have now with Lower Merion Township, or whether, again, we can kind of get away with being more generic so we don't have to then update the ordinance in the future if the circumstances of that change. The other big sort of thing for the committee's attention is how we handle trash for commercial properties. And there's a few different ways you could do it. The way that I've referenced it in this ordinance here is basically we're going to provide the same basic level of service, whatever we define that as, to everyone. And then if you want more than that, you have to, pay for that on your own.
When you say commercial, Samantha, can I just clarify, is that also in apartments?
No, so that is defined separately, because I would envision, what I would want to do for apartment buildings is I would want to structure this ordinance and then structure a contract where, this ordinance attempts to define these things. Residential properties would be like, you have your trash toter, your recycling toter, and then you can put your trash and recycling out in those. Whereas for apartment buildings, we've seen with land development applications here, and just with modern apartment buildings, you have a dumpster, and then that gets collected. Now, one of the challenges we would probably run into, admittedly, is we'd have to work with and we had a recent issue that, myself and Rob and our code enforcement officer worked through, where we had a dumpster at an apartment building that wasn't really properly screened or secured. And in defense, the apartment buildings that were built here, 50, 60 years ago weren't built with, oh yeah, I need to provide a proper space for a dumpster. So we'd have to work through that, but I think that would be less worse than the current situation where you have 30 trash toters piled up on the sidewalk and out in the road. And frankly, it'd be cheaper for the apartment buildings and cheaper for it'd be more efficient for the trash hauler, because the way we're going to do the billing, the way I want to do the contract for next year is be here's the rate for the non-dumpster service, once a week, basically that's what we have now, once a week trash pickup, once a week recycling pickup, one bulk item per week, and then so much leaf and yard waste. And then I want a separate price for dumpsters for each of these apartment buildings. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, I need to cough real quick. And then that way when we bill for it, we have the problem this year of how do we equitably bill for trash service, because it's all kind of jumbled up and mixed around. Whereas with this way, all the residents and all the commercial properties would get, one form of bill, and then the apartment, dozen or so apartment buildings in the borough would have this separate rate because they would have a different form of service than, than everyone else. And
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What about the apartments that are smaller? So you might only have 10 units or 5 units, so then they all put their trash out on the street.
Yeah, and that's one of the major decision points we're going to have to make in terms of writing this this ordinance. So Lower Merion, for example, defines it as more than 4 and up to 50 dwelling units is eligible for the dumpster service. And I'd be willing to bump up the 50 dwelling units number, because I think the Elm has 51 or something like that.
I was going to ask that question, because the Elm has really kind of compact dumpsters. And
Yeah.
can you imagine if the developer did not elect to do that? Because right now, the developer could have said, here's a trash can, and we could have had 51 trash cans on
Right.
the sidewalk
Right.
every week. So I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And so there's that part, and let me find where my definitions are. All right, so I mean, we have definition residential dwelling, and this is actually what the current ordinance says. You know, a property designed for and occupied exclusively as a home or residence for a single family. Multiple dwelling is defined as a property used as a dwelling house or residential unit for two or more families, each separate and apart. So I think we probably need to tweak that definition because, yeah, I don't think a duplex needs a dumpster. I think that's fine to have, each have their own individual trash unit. So I don't know, to me, Laura Marion talks about, this 4 to 15 number. And I don't know, to me, I know you referenced 10. I don't know, to me, maybe 4 kind of feels like the right kind of cutoff for when you need to get a dumpster.
I agree. When you think of it, gosh, more than 4 feels like, again, you're taking over the sidewalk.
And it's just a nice one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you see blocks where strollers, you're literally walking out into the street because there's a pothole. And I agree, 4 does feel like a manageable. And you think, how many homes have been converted into 5 dwellings in Maryland? I think it's very small.
Yeah, it's much more of a great.
Right.
And then speaking of the sidewalk, one of the other big things I wanted to bring to your attention was the current ordinance has like almost no regulation about like how and when you put your trash out. And so I tried to add some language on there that like containers shouldn't be put out earlier than 7 p.m. the night before and no later than 7 a.m. on the day of collection. Because there are times where residents will be like, oh, my trash wasn't picked up. And then I hate to do this, but I'll ask them, oh, well, what time did you put it out? And they'll be like, oh, I put it out like 9 o'clock this morning. And I'll be like, oh, well, sorry. Like,
Right.
And then a note that containers must be retrieved no later than 9 o'clock p.m. of the day of collection, which I think is pretty generous. And then all municipal waste placed for collection must be in a container placed at curbside or within 5 feet of the edge of the cartway. Be readily visible from the cartway, because that's another issue the trash hauler runs into is someone puts their trash in some spot they can't really find it. And also we don't want people putting their trash container out in like the middle of the street. There's our parking enforcement has had to chat with someone before who puts their trash like out in the middle of like where people park their cars with some cones, and that's not ideal. No. So, and then finally, I added this sentence: if placed on a side, actually, I forget if I came up with this or copied it. I may have copied this from Laura Marion. If placed on a sidewalk, adequate spacing must be provided to allow for use of the sidewalk. So I think, that will just, add some clarity to how that should be done. So it's not just done, however.
We could also, if we don't already have it in there, add something about fencing.
So yeah, that's actually the next section. Great idea. All refuse shall be kept in watertight containers as provided by the borough or its designated agent with tight covers and so covered at all times to prevent odors from escaping and refuse from being blown, dropped, or spilled. So a great idea.
And that's the number one way to avoid rodents as well.
True, absolutely. Which this committee has also spent a lot of time talking about.
Which, not to break from this, but when you talked about reference the brush and the composting, would that include food waste as well, or would that just be brush?
For now, we've just been talking about the borough collecting brush to provide to composting, but I think I could talk more like wherever we then take the brush, like maybe we could figure out some way to open that up for people to dispose of food waste if they wanted to. Not to get too far off track, because I know our time is almost up, but you'd have to make sure people aren't just like randomly throwing stuff in there they shouldn't as well. So that'd be kind of the tricky part with that.
So should we, what would be a next step for the committee? Should we review what you provided?
Honestly, no. I think that, frankly, I didn't expect you all to read a 20-page ordinance. So the things I referenced this morning are really the things I needed your input on. If anyone goes back and reads it and finds something that's particularly offensive, I don't think you would, but please let me know. But otherwise, I would like to take what I put together, plus the feedback from you all this morning, and provide that to the borough solicitor to draft into a new ordinance for the consideration of the committee and council. And given that ordinance will be much shorter in length than this current document, that might be the one to really read. And, yeah.
Okay. That sounds good.
Sorry, can we go back to the commercial? Just to clarify, there will be the same amount of pickup as the rest of the borough, and then if they want additional pickup, they would pay for that?
That's right, yeah. On their own, they would contract, whether with our hauler or another hauler.
And that's for each individual business?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know, I have to think about that more because I do feel like just trash pickup in the business district, it has a lot to do with the whole cleanliness and of the downtown area. So if we can do additional pickups in the downtown area, it would be, I think it would be a benefit to the business district.
The only caveat I'll say, sorry, Sydney.
I'm sorry, to clarify, the Public Works picks up the cans when they get overflowed right now.
Yeah, so Public Works does the pedestrian cans that are out, like the public trash, that sort of stuff. The only caveat I would put on providing a different level of service is the way our trash billing system works is I can only bill we don't have the capacity to bill different properties, different rates. So it'd be like every commercial property in the borough would get charged the same rate. I couldn't just be like, the ones right here on Haverford, get charged one rate. But if we wanted to say every business in the borough would get, twice a week pickup, then the billing could certainly accommodate that.
And then do all of the commercial businesses, do they all have dumpsters?
They do not. Part of
That's
the
something that we have any control over? That's also
Yeah, there are regulations in here that basically say you have to put your trash, however, whether you're doing through the borough on your own, you do have to put your trash out. And let's see here, there's these sections on storage of refuse and collection practices that talk about that. And the challenge with commercial properties is it's not it really isn't one size fits all. My understanding, and I know we're at time here now, is that prior management, and I totally understand why, when they did the contract last time, it's well, we're just not going to include commercial properties because you can't standardize it and all these other kind of issues. And my understanding, some of you here may have actually been through this and know more than me, is that the business community wasn't adequately informed of that change in policy. And so when it went into effect, there was a certain outcry from the business community about it. And that's what then led the borough to establish a separate side contract with Republic for the dumpsters that we have in downtown and some other parts of the borough that we pay for. Well, that we pay Republic for, and then the property owners pay us for.
So, I know we're out of time, but we can review, once you have a draft, we can review this and continue to.
Yeah, because these are really good questions, yeah.
I mean, so we don't have to,
Right.
have it all settled today.
True.
Right, okay.
Because I think we all do with the pedestrian trash and keeping the 5A district tidy as a part.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, I think we're done. If I have a motion to adjourn. And second. Okay, so we will adjourn and meet again in March.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.